What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. We're going to be doing some more testing today with the Ruger LC Carbine in 10mm. I just picked this up. We just put out our first video not too long ago. If you haven't seen that, check that out. I promised you guys in that video we would have some velocity testing. We're going to compare pistol velocities to this 16-inch rifle velocity. So, pretty simple. We got two different chronographs here. We got the old Caldwell that we've used for a long time. It's starting to get a little shaky now, especially in hot sunlight or intense sunlight. But we have the Garmin chronograph now, and that's been behaving pretty well. The pistol we've chosen today is one of the channel favorites and one of my personal favorites, a Colt Delta Elite 5-inch 1911. That firearm is actually used in a ton of different testing for companies that are coming up with load data and companies that do velocity testing for their own ammunition. It's in the books they write down Colt Delta Elite. These companies even sometimes write down on their boxes of ammo that it was tested through a Colt Delta Elite. So the 5-inch 1911 10mm, very good standard for testing pistol velocities. Then we go right to the 16-inch barrel. Some people say that that wastes the velocity of a 10mm. I think that they're almost getting that confused with 9mm and 357 SIG. After a certain point, which we're not going to get into the really big details and weeds about it, but 9mm 357 SIG, maybe 40 caliber, they start falling short at a certain point in longer and longer barrels. Most cartridges do. However, the 10mm seems to do pretty well. It seems to top out with most weighted loads at 15 or 16 inches. That's about the top end for most of the loads, between 135 and 200, 220 grains, things like that. We have a very good spread of ammunition today. We're going to be testing basic range ammo like S&B. We're going to be testing Liberty Overwatch, which is super light. And then we even have some double tap over here that's 220 grains. So we're going to get through the grain weights. I know a lot of you have the CMMG Banshee or things that are close to it with maybe a 10.5, 12.5 inch barrel. And you guys are really happy with those. You do see the velocity increase and you can appreciate the power difference. Some people say there's no reason to have 16 inches. It's wasted. Like I said, I don't think it's wasted. And the thing about it is when you have an AR style where the magwell is a little bit more forward, the pistol protrudes, or the rifle would protrude a little bit farther. A 16-inch barrel, though, with a magwell down here, when you shoulder this thing, it actually feels like a short-barreled rifle or a pistol brace type of AR. So if I can add another 6 inches of the barrel and get even more performance, then I think that's a winner. Now, some of the documented velocity differences between, let's say, a Colt Delta Elite 5-inch 1911 and a 16-inch barrel in 10mm are about 200 feet per second on average, depending on which ammunition you choose. It's going to be interesting to see if we get the same results. I think it's important to say that not all bullets will be able to handle that extra velocity. Some of them are built and constructed for handgun velocities. When you push them very hard, very fast, sometimes they may come apart a little prematurely and just not work totally as intended. I don't like it when people say bullets fail, because as long as the bullet is going through something, it's doing its job as a bullet. It just might not be performing as ideally as you would want it to. Lead round nose or flat point bullets solve that problem pretty well. Hard cast solves it even better, and copper monolithic, that definitely solves the problem. Those type of rounds seem to just do better with higher velocity, and they don't deform much at all, if any. Enough talking, time to start shooting. We're going to go get the chronograph set up and bring you some numbers. All right, I've picked from a variety of different manufacturers, no favoritism here. We're going to start out here on the left where we have the normal range / basic training ammo. That's going to be our baseline. After that, we're going from light to heavy, left to right. The first one is S&B. That's a basic 180 grain full metal jacket load. That's just your training ammo. Like I said, it's not loaded very hot. A lot of people use this. It's been around for a long time. Next is Liberty Overwatch. It's pretty much a civil defense, just hardened a little bit. That's 70 grains. We have an Underwood 140 grain extreme penetrator. That's that solid copper monolithic bullet that I was telling you about. They do not deform. Then we have another Underwood 155 grain jacketed hollow point. Now that is the type of round that could totally blow itself to pieces. We'll be doing gel testing in the future, so make sure you're subscribed for that. Another good choice, in my opinion, for 10mm ammo is Hornady Critical Duty. That's a 175 grain flex lock. Now, a lot of people knock on this because it's not exactly super velocity, but it is consistent and it seems to be pretty barrier blind. Here's a really strong performer, definitely in our gel test videos. We have the 10mm from Sig Sauer. That's a 180 grain jacketed hollow point. This one here seems to be more of a basic design. This is the Winchester Big Bore 200 grain semi-jacketed hollow point. So to tip the scales at 230 grains, which is definitely pretty heavy for a 10mm, we have double tap to round out this selection. Now that's not a single projectile making that 230 grains. In there is a jacketed hollow point backed up by an actual ball. So it could be considered a duplex or a stacked round, some people might call that. That's a 135 grain jacketed hollow point, and then the hard cast ball underneath it is 95 grains. So together they equal that weight, and together the box says 553 foot-pounds. So not too bad. And notice they set out of a 5-inch barrel. So we have that technology. We'll test it. All right, we have one chronograph right here. We have the Caldwell chronograph up there 15 feet ahead of us. We're going to be hitting that steel plate just so you can hear what things sound like with 10mm. It's always fun. We're going to start out with the full metal jacket from Cellular S&B. Let's just say that. So S&B 10mm, 180 grains. Colt Delta Elite 5-inch. All right, on the Garmin, we have 1097.8. And on the Caldwell, we have 1055. I know a lot of you guys are going to be screaming at those velocities for 10mm, but let's see if we can improve it a little bit with a 16-inch barrel. Safety off. All right, the Caldwell says 1221. That's a little bit better. And then the Garmin says 1251.9. All right, now we're going super lightweight with the Liberty Overwatch, 70 grains. That's very, very light, but very fast. And very loud. The Caldwell up there says 2097, and the Garmin in front of me says 2252. That's pretty darn fast. All right, let's see if we can hit 2500 on the Garmin out of this rifle. Ooh, 2651 out of the Garmin and 2485 out of the Caldwell. So it's going to be up to you which one you trust, the Garmin or the Caldwell, but I would go ahead and say I'm personally going to trust the Garmin. I guess you could average them out, but that Caldwell has a little bit of problem in the direct sunlight, even with the sun shades. So next up is the Extreme Penetrator 140 grain from Underwood. That's very loud too. 1438 on the Caldwell and 1488 on the Garmin. All right, these things say on the box 1500 feet per second. We got close to that, so I adjusted the Garmin to try to account for the faster rate. I'm thinking we're going to gain the 200 feet per second to make it up to the 1700 mark on that Garmin. We got 1680 on the Caldwell and we got 1756 on the Garmin. All right, now the Underwood 155 grain jacketed hollow point XTP out of the Delta. We have 1437 on the Caldwell and 1496 on the Garmin. All right, 16-inch barrel. And we got 1670 out of the Caldwell and 1724 out of the Garmin. All right, one of my very favorite rounds, even though not everybody likes it, especially in 10mm, is the Hornady Critical Duty 175 grain with a flex tip bullet. That goes at 1071 on the Caldwell and 1125.6 out of the Garmin. All right, now out of the Ruger. And we have 1185 out of the Caldwell, 1218.3 from the Garmin. And then another one of my favorites, the SIG V-Crown. For a big company, SIG makes really good ammunition. Very powerful. At least it feels that way. 1166 out of the Caldwell and 1222 out of the Garmin. And the Ruger. All right, we have 1366 from the Caldwell, 1402.3 on the Garmin. All right, now we have what many would consider a hunting round from Winchester. It's their big bore 10mm 200 grain. That felt pretty nice actually to shoot. 1056 on the Caldwell and 1090 on the Garmin. Now, since that is possibly a hunting round, some people might use that for hunting out of this particular rifle. Let's see what kind of velocity we'll get on a 200 grain pill. We have 1170 on the Caldwell and 1201.4 on the Garmin. All right, and now for the heaviest of all. This would probably be considered a defensive round. Let's see what would happen here out of the Delta Elite. There we go with an 894 on the Caldwell and a 915 on the Garmin. I'm not sure how the chronographs actually interpret multiple projectiles. I'm thinking they're stuck together pretty well, at least when we've done gel testing with them. At 10 feet or 12 feet, maybe 15 feet, they've seemed to stay together pretty well. So I think we got accurate reads. That's pretty darn heavy. That might account for that 915. I know that's not what the box says, but I will say that I'm just not sure if the chronograph's picking up totally properly. It probably is, but just keep in mind, maybe not. Let's see what it does out of the rifle. Well, the Caldwell says 910 and the Garmin says 929.2. So I think we gathered a lot of good information there. I know a lot of you wanted to see the velocity difference. It really is important. There's no reason to grab a carbine version of a pistol caliber if it's not going to do anything for you as far as ballistics downrange. It might be a little bit easier to use out of a rifle sometimes, but we need to get a little bit of extra power if we're going to go to a rifle platform, in my opinion. With this spread of ammunition here today, we increased the velocity by an average of about 180 feet per second. We did learn that the lighter caliber bullets benefited the best from the 16-inch barrel. The Liberty Overwatch really increased big time, and then we started to get less and less increase of velocity as we got heavier. By the time we were at 230 grains, there really was not a significant increase in velocity at all, in my opinion, on that particular round. Now, we were comparing different types of projectiles from different manufacturers, but for the most part, I think we got a pretty good representation of a lot of the ammunition, at least grain weight-wise, that you will find for 10mm. So I hope you found this information helpful. We will be going through other ammunitions as we go through our gel test, so we're going to be showing you the gel test with the handgun and the rifle. So anything we didn't cover here today, it'll be covered in future tests. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that. If you are subscribed, check your notification bell because sometimes funny things happen. Looking forward to hearing all your thoughts in the comment section about this increase in velocity for certain ammunitions. Does this matter to you? Is that going to maybe make it or break it when it comes to purchasing this firearm or this type of firearm? Thank you for watching today's testing, and until we see you next time, stay safe, have fun, and keep shooting.